things that I noticed yesterday. I was looking at some of your notebooks, and I was looking to see exactly how you were taking notes. And one of the things I've noticed as you're taking notes is that a lot of you are writing down sentences. You're copying down sentences either from the text as it's displayed up on the with the projector and the document camera. And I wanted to kind of take a few minutes today to remind you that you're supposed to be taking notes in a boxes and bullets fashion. And I think, Eli, do you have your notebook out? Okay. I think that it's important for me to kind of explicitly teach you how to do this. Because what happens is that if you're copying sentences from the text, either from me reading it out loud or from you reading it off of the screen, what is going to happen is those copied sentences from the text are going to end up in your essay and not always cited as not your own words. Okay, so yes, you can use quotes from the text, but you should really be paying very close attention to the fact that you're just taking notes in a boxes and bullets fashion. All right, so let's go back. Yesterday in our class, remember we grappled with a thesis statement for our essay on the events leading up to the American Revolution. And now, while you might not have the same one that I do, just to remind you, one of what we talked about, the colonists felt that Britain was treating them unfairly, so they decided to fight for their independence. Okay, so you may have something that's a little bit different from that after our lesson yesterday. But now that we have this kind of idea of our thesis statement, then we can go back and revisit our notes with that lens, looking for what we want to talk about. And as we do that, I also want to show you and demonstrate to you how you should be taking your notes. Okay, so I'm going to go back actually to the very first chapter in our book, our Liberty book. And Paige, you'll be able to copy this later. I also recorded the lesson, and it's available on Teams. All right, so let's go back and look at the very first chapter, and you can flip back to your notes, where we started to see the unfairness that the American colonists were feeling as the British started to tax them and impose, I don't know why, oh, there it is. And this was the sneaky taxes chapter. It's actually the third chapter, but it's the first chapter where we start to see the change in the happiness that the colonists felt. And now they're starting to feel like they are not being treated fairly. The bloody French and Indian War was finally over. But what if the Indians attacked again? What if Spain tried to invade? The British were still afraid of losing their colonies, so they decided to keep an army in America. 10,000 British soldiers called redcoats, because of their red jackets, were sent across the ocean. 10,000 men ate a lot of food, and they wore out hundreds of pairs of shoes and suits of clothing. Who would pay for their keep? The British said the colonists should pay. The British Parliament, which made laws for Britain and its colonies, passed the Quartering Act. It said that the colonists had to provide quarters, places to live, for all the redcoats stationed in America. All right, so in your notes, remember boxes and bullets, right? In your notes, you should have sneaky taxes, because that's the name of the chapter, so that if you go to cite anything, but you have the Quartering Act in your box, and your bullet is that the colonists provided British soldiers with a place to live. Let me move this so that you can see it. And I'm sorry, it's Quartering Act, not the Quarter Act. ING. So because we know that we're going to be focusing our essay on how the colonists were being treated unfairly, we're now going to read our notes with a lens for those specific things that cause them to feel that. And in this chapter, the first one is the Quartering Act. Did you get that, Eli? Thank you. Okay, so let's read on. Then the British thought of another way to raise money from the colonies. They would enforce the Navigation Acts, which had been passed in the 1600s but never implemented. The Navigation Acts said that the colonists had to buy almost everything they needed from Britain, even when a product could be bought more cheaply from another country. And not only that, they also had to sell almost everything they produced to Britain, even if they could get better prices elsewhere. It didn't seem fair. So in our notes, our next box is going to be Navigation Acts. And this is when we talked yesterday, and we talked about the fact that the British were trying to control commerce, the buying and selling of goods. They were trying to control it, and basically they were creating a monopoly for themselves. So we have our bullet, colonists could only buy goods from Britain. Colonists could only sell goods to Britain. Now remember, we're focusing on why they felt that this was unfair, right? And so the colonists feel that this is unfair because they may be able to buy goods more cheaply from another country, or they may be able to sell goods for a higher price with another country, and this limited them, okay? So we want to make a note, we want to write a note here about why they felt that it was unfair. Okay, so they felt that it was unfair because they might be able to buy or sell for better prices from or to someone else. And what did they do? They smuggled. They hired smugglers. It says here, so people paid smugglers to bring in illegal foreign goods and to sell the colony's own goods to other countries. They did business with their butcher, their baker, and their smuggler. When the British saw what was going on, they sent warships to patrol the American coast. Smugglers who were caught were fined and imprisoned. So we have British send warships to fine So now we have the reaction of the British. This made the colonists angry. The Sugar Act made them even angrier. So we should see Sugar Act in a box. This act made it very expensive for the colonists to import one of their favorite products, molasses. The Quartering Act, the Navigation Acts, and the Sugar Act seemed to the colonists like sneaky ways of making Britain richer at their expense. And so, hopefully, as a writer, you're noticing that as they're getting down to the end of the chapter, you can see sort of like a summary of the important things that we should have taken notes on. So you can see this is the boxes and the bullets format of taking notes. So we don't have complete sentences copied. If we do, we put them in quotation marks. Because we don't want to plagiarize. We can summarize, but we don't want to plagiarize. And regardless of whether we summarize or quote, we're going to want to cite the text. So in this case, you would be saying, you would have to mention the book and then the title of the chapter. Okay, so what I'd like you to do as your next step is I'd like you to go back and take a look let me just see. Take a look at some of your other notes to see if you can revise them. Remember what we're doing today. We're reading through our notes with a lens for our thesis statement that we developed yesterday. We're reading through our notes And we're making sure that they are in a boxes and bullets format. Remember, just focusing on those things that we noted down that had to do with the colonists feeling unfairly treated. Okay, so what you can do is you can go ahead and work with your partner. Okay, Ava is absent today. Who is Ava's partner? Alina? Okay. So Alina, you'll once everybody gets working, I will assign you a different partner, and you can move your chair so that there is a group of 3, isn't there? Okay, so it's Caroline and Linda, and who else? Okay, Claire. Claire, would you be Alina's partner today since you're close by? All right, so remember what you're doing. I want you to continue to read through your notes, and with your lens for your thesis statement, and I want you to focus on just those notes that would support your thesis statement, and I would like you to put it into this boxes and bullets format. Now, if you need to move it to a fresh page, that's fine. If you can do it with any space that you have nearby, that's also fine. Just make sure that in your notes, you have where that information came from, the title of the book and the chapter. All right, go ahead and move and get into place and begin working.